everyone. James Labrie from Dream Theater, and you're listening to or watching the podcast Talking into Infinity with JT and Brian. Enjoy this. These guys are extremely informative. I love their dialogue. I love their interpretation of the songs, who and what we are, what we were going after. They're very accurate in their interpretations and descriptions, and I just think this is a great show, and these guys are doing a stand-up stellar job. So once again, enjoy Talking into Infinity with JT and Brian.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Talking into Infinity. I am your host, John Drake. We are live on YouTube, thecmsnetwork.com, and talkingintoinfinity.com. Talking into Infinity airs live every other Thursday at all those locations at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if you can't catch us live, you can always catch the audio replays wherever you get your podcasts. So without further ado, let me bring in my esteemed co-host, Brian. How's it going, man?
It's going awesome, man. This is one of those show ideas, and I'm sure we'll jump into it in a bit here. Maybe you have some other things to talk about before we get to it. But we had this idea when we first kind of started talking about the show. I had this idea of, hey, what are the coolest moments from every guy in the band? And, why don't we start with probably the master? He does mostly all of the production. He's probably the main arranger now, probably comes up with most of the riffs and song ideas. And that's the master himself, John Petrucci. This should be fun.
Yeah, it was a perfect week to do it, being that it was his birthday 2 days ago.
Yeah, that was a total coincidence, by the way. I can't take credit for that.
One of the few things you actually did not plan out in advance. So
right.
So real quick, I want to get to something that I didn't really notice. This was actually brought to my attention by Jean-Philippe Lavoie. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly. He's in the chat right now, so gotta throw credit his way for this. But apparently, Dream Theater has been teasing a lead up to some kind of announcement. I saw it on Instagram. There's 2 videos so far, and basically it starts out with those little ViewMaster things that we had as a kid. Like, you put the little round discs in there and you click it and like pictures go through. And the first one started. It's like blurry kind of close-up pictures of the album covers. When you look, you can tell what it is if you know the album covers. And the first one started out with When Dream and Day Unite. And then the second one ended with 6 Degrees of Inner Turbulence. So it looks, and it's going in chronological order. So it looks like they're leading up to some kind of an announcement. So hopefully we should have some information on the new record here pretty soon. I'm pumped up. I know you and I got some information on the new record today that unfortunately we cannot share. But everything that we have heard is really, really, really freaking good. So as soon as we're able to give some information, we will, but just suffice it to say that, we'd be betraying confidences if we did that. But everything we have heard is that this is going to be one of the best Dream Theater records that's ever been recorded. So have you seen those videos yet?
I have seen those videos, and the first thing I thought of was, this is just kind of a teaser saying, the new one's on its way, which is kind of annoying because we already know the new one's on its way. So just give me a taste of what it's going to sound like, give me some song bites or their titles or something, but it's cool. It's just a way to kind of just get your anticipation ramped up even more,
Yeah, I totally agree. If you're looking to find those, I found them on Instagram, but not the band's Instagram. It was actually the official fan club, Dream Theater World. So if you go to Instagram and look that up there, the most 2 recent posts are those ViewMaster things. So I think there's stuff in there because if you look at them real close, like there's what looks like times, like 8, 10 and stuff like that. It looks like the length of a song. And there's initials and some stuff, so I'm wondering if they're like giving the initials of songs and like song lengths. I don't know if that's the case, but I'll have to go back in and look and just see if it's, if that's the case. But
well, even so, it's like, oh, cool. There's going to be a song that's 9.5 minutes. Yay! Like, what does that do for me?
Yeah, we don't know that they have 9.5-minute songs.
Right, exactly. Or if it's a 5-minute, they've had a few 5-minute ones too. I'm interested to hear this because I've been going back a whole lot lately to the last album, Distance Over Time.
Yeah,
and man, what a masterpiece. I think this is what I think we should do. Maybe the week before the new one comes out, let's do our deep dive on that.
Okay.
That's kind of the thought I had, because man, that album is just, God, it just sounds so good. And kind of a back to roots sort of a type of thing. And
Yep.
if some of the stuff we're hearing is true, it's going to be in that vein and just even more insane.
Yeah, I completely agree. I'm a huge fan of Distance Over Time. I come back to that one a lot, and not just because it's the most recent album. I love the production on it. I think the songs are like they're just perfectly timed. I would say it's like just enough, and they're kind of long. But we've talked on the show before about songs that they have that they're long, but you don't really realize they're long. And I think the whole record is like that. When you get to the lengthier songs, you don't really realize how long some of the, like, the 9-minute songs really are, because they're just written so well.
Yep.
So, all right. Well, let's get into the topic then. So, I had a little bit of a criteria for my list of 10. So what we're doing is we each picked our top 10 favorite John Petrucci guitar moments in Dream Theater. I specified that with Brian so he doesn't cheat and go pulling out solo stuff and Liquid Tension and all that crap like he likes to do. So, yeah, when I was doing my list, I think there's some commonalities between like favorite songs of mine and favorite guitar moments. But when I was listening to stuff trying to come up with my list, I don't know about you, but you were kind of like, there's a ton of awesome parts. So it'd be really hard to really sift through everything because there's so many great things. So to me, I kind of went with stuff that stuck in my mind right away and has kind of stuck with me, the whole time. Kale McLeish, what's up, man? He says, so Happy Song intro isn't an answer? Damn.
Oh, man, I love that song.
Hey, look at this. It's David Ellis from the 9-8 podcast. Hey, what's up, Dave? Dave is all the way in Australia as well. So it's actually a 12-hour time difference. So he woke up in the morning to check it. Appreciate that, man.
Wow.
Well, yeah, appreciate that. Good to see you, man. We're going to have to do a crossover episode at some time. We've been talking about that. We just got to figure out the scheduling with the 12-hour time difference. So
Cool.
maybe we'll do 2 of them. They'll accommodate our schedule once, and we'll accommodate their schedule once.
Who gets the better end of that deal? I think we probably do, don't we?
Either one of us is going to be up at 7:30 in the morning doing a podcast. So,
okay.
So there it is. But so yeah, so my list, like I said, I picked stuff that really stuck with me immediately and has kind of stayed with me as like, man, that always sticks out in my mind. Did you have a particular criteria that you used when coming up with your list?
Yeah, I mean, you and I have talked before about, sometimes I'll even text you like, man, that song right there, I literally get chills in the back of my neck when he plays that riff. And you're like, yeah, me too. So I kind of have a staple of about 3 or 4 of those that I just have to go to, even if they're ones that I picked on my set list and ones that are on my, from our draft or ones that I'm just always bragging about. Those just have to be in there for me. But it was interesting. I did come up with a couple that I kind of wasn't really thinking I would, and I just started listening to some stuff and I'm like, man, this really probably should be in there. So again, like you said, it's subjective and, there's really no wrong answers to any of this stuff. But I think we're going to have some cool discussion here.
Yeah, I thought we might have a couple crossovers and we didn't. And there were also a couple things that I thought would be on at least one of our lists and didn't end up there. So that was kind of interesting to me. Something that didn't make the list that I thought one of us would have picked was Barstool Warrior. I mean, I love that riff. I love the whole song. And it's just, I kind of thought, okay, well, Brian's going to pick this one. And then I thought, okay, it's a little too obvious, so I kind of left it off. But then when you sent me your list and it wasn't on there, I was like, damn it, I could have used that.
I was very close. I picked 2 just because I think we did find 2 we hadn't. I picked 2 extras. Yeah. One of which was off there was Paralyzed.
Really? That's a good one. I didn't even think about that.
The opening chunky, hard rock heavy, just kind of their standard riff that you've heard, but it's really twisted around, and I really love the drums on it too. I know this is supposed to be about guitar, but I just love the riff on that and the way that song starts. Yeah. And like I said, I've been on this insane kick on Distance Over Time lately. So Paralyzed was one that didn't make it. I had one other one that I probably should have put on there thinking back now, and that's Strange Deja Vu. I mean, I love that Queensryche sort of mind crime riff that we talked about before. I love that riff.
Yep. It's funny, like I was thinking about Scenes from a Memory and I didn't put anything on my list from there because I always kind of look at that as like a one large piece. So I like individual parts don't always stick out to me. It's just like a big, The Astonishing is kind of like that too. Like I don't know the names of songs and stuff. I just know it as like a big soundscape. My honorable mentions, I had two as well. One I just put on there today that I couldn't believe I forgot, but one honorable mention for me that was going to be on my main list until I realized how short it was. So I was like, it's too short. Was that reverse part in Misunderstood? Like I've always thought that was such a cool idea, and then he talks about how he had to learn to play it that way because it was originally he played it one way, and then they reversed it to put it on the record, so he had to actually learn it the backwards way to play it live. So I thought that was cool, but it was just too short. But the one that I can't believe I forgot that I've always been a big fan of, it's like my favorite song on this record of all things. It's an instrumental, but Enigma Machine. I love that song. It's like one of my favorite instrumentals they do, and it's like the guitars are just growling, man. That detuned, like heavy, ballsy chunk. And I listened to it today. I was like, damn. I in the back of my mind, I was like, I'm forgetting one, and that turned out to be it. So, all right. So why don't we start with our commonalities, which there are two of them, and I'll let you start first. And this is probably a super obvious one. But screw it, it's our show. We can do super obvious things. Okay, Gibson Les Paul wants to know before we get into this: do solos count or is it just riffs? We actually have solos, riffs, and entire songs, Gibson. So it's basically if something really stuck out, that's what we're doing. Adam Rishog, what's up, man? Good to see you again. Best of Times has to be one of my favorite JP solos of all time, hands down. Very good call on that one. And our buddy Kale says, I've got a super deep cut on my list. You'll have to let us know what that is later.
I saw what it was, and I forgot the name. It's on one of the fan releases.
What?
Maybe something, or of course I can't remember the title now. I had to look it up on Spotify because I did not know it. I listened to it. It's a cool song.
All right, Kale, let us know in the comments what it is, and we'll get started.
Since I'm too dumb to remember what it was.
Well, if it's like, look at that.
Okay, it sounds a lot like U2 in the beginning. Maybe you know what that is. It's very U2 sort of Rush-ish sounding.
I would probably know the name of the song when I see it. Yeah. One last thing before we get going. David Ellis, excuse me. Fun fact for the guitar solo in Misunderstood, John Petrucci recorded the solo normally, reversed it, taught himself how to play it reversed, recorded the reversed version, reversed that, then taught himself how to play the now modified forward-playing version, resulting in the weird warped sounds you hear in the final production. That seems like a lot of work for something. All right. So Kale says it's from the Falling Into Infinity demos. I had a feeling that's, all right. So
I listened to it. Just tell us the name of it because I thought it was a cool song, but I can't remember the name of it. Maybe he wants to wait. That's okay.
Yeah, he can wait. That's fine. All right. So let's get into this here. So the first one, and again, it's a commonality and it's an obvious one, but who cares? It kicks ass. Metropolis. From obviously Images and Words. So I'll let you start with your notes on it. I know that we both have a lot of notes on each other's stuff. So
yeah, I mean this just like I said, is probably the quintessential Dream Theater song, and I like this song so much mainly because there's kind of those cool, clean, broken parts during the verses, and those support the really grinding, driving, heavier riffs that come. And it's just his ability to go back and forth between these cool, clean rhythms and then this heavy, chunky stuff. And it's so melodic and it's so musical. And he goes off on his own tangents plenty of times, but then there's plenty of times when it's doubling with Kevin Moore. And it's just a master class. And this is Dream Theater.
Yeah. To me, this was like the first time that you really get that sense of exactly what the band is like all about. In all aspects. I remember the first time I heard the record, I've told that story on the show before, but after Pull Me Under and then you get Another Day and stuff like that. And then as the record's going, I'm like, man, this is crazy. And then I get to Metropolis and I was like, what the hell is that? Like, it just completely blew me away. And it was, one of those things that I think set the standard for what they would do afterwards. And they've done a whole ton of those like speed, unison harmony type of things between the keys and the guitar since. But I think this still might be the standard bearer for it. It's like, they set the bar so high with that. I mean, it's crazy. And one of the things that I noted, I said the guitars and the riffing parts go from straight up rock parts to those goofy computer sounding pieces. all that chattery high stuff. It's cool, man. It like kind of dances around.
Yes, sometimes I'm not a fan of a song where in the middle it kind of just turns into a jam that feels like it doesn't fit necessarily. But I don't know. This one just has always seemed to work for me, and the way they get into it and get out of it and get back into the main song, it's awesome.
Yeah, I I think you used a good term, master class. I think this is definitely, and you've said it before. If you want to show somebody what Dream Theater is all about, it's like this is the song that you want to give them, and especially like guitar wise, it's just all over the place. It's got his clean playing, it's got his melodic playing, it's got his shred playing, it's got some of that, like I said, those little computery chirpy things that he does occasionally. It's got everything. So, all right, so our second choice, and this is the second one that we have in common. This would be for you. It's the full song. And I like the full song too, but I pick out the guitar solo because it's my favorite John Petrucci guitar solo. The Test That Stumped Them All from 6 Degrees of Inner Turbulence. And I actually do have in my notes honorable mention. The riffs in this tune are killer also. So I did mention the rest of the song as well. That first note that he grabs is my all-time favorite Petrucci theme. It goes, I mean, that's why if you listen to the audio version of the podcast, I have that snippet in the intro.
Yep.
Because I just love it, and it's just if you listen to it, especially in headphones, it just sounds like he's grabbing those bends and just digging into the fretboard, just muscling through that solo, and it just sounds so cool to me.
This is a song that, and I was telling you the other day about how I've just really have a new appreciation for 6 Degrees. Probably before we started this podcast, if we were going to make this list, I would not have put the song on here. But man, I absolutely love just from start to finish. He never lets up playing just these incredible, cool passages, and like it's one of those where he doubles a lot, but he also does his own thing, and it's so brutally heavy and so fast, and I don't know, it's just a very powerful, powerful song, and I just think it's one of his best.
Yep, I agree. And, the song itself is just cool because I know this may be more of like a drum thing and a full band thing, but it's always been so cool to me, like, and it kind of builds like the next, like, and oh my God. So yeah, Kale said it. He said, Test That Stumped Them All feels like an angry solo. I love it. Yeah, like I said, it feels like he's like muscling through it. I love that vibe. Gibson Les Paul says, he says, a solo from 6 Degrees makes my list too. Goodnight Kiss. Yeah, that's a damn good one too. 6 Degrees itself is a great guitar album. There are a few in their catalog that are just, when you listen to all the songs, you're like, damn, this is like really a guitar. I mean, it's a very guitar-centric band, but some of them are just very centered around Petrucci, and I think 6 Degrees is one of them. So, all right, now that we have done our two commonalities, why don't you do the first one that you have that we do not have in common?
So I want to go 360 degrees the opposite direction with This Is the Life. This Is the Life. I love the main acoustic opening riff, and then it goes into those just kind of ethereal, singular sort of, maybe a little bit of a nod to Pink Floyd soloing that comes on very early. And again, he's able to bounce back and forth between these multiple guitar sounds, and it never sounds out of place at all. And just a beautiful song, and just a beautiful main melody on the guitar there that he plays on those acoustic, or if that's just a clean electric, I'm not sure some of the time, but man, I love that main riff.
Yeah, it's funny that you brought this one up, because right after we agree on two, you brought up the one where I completely disagree with you. This song never really did anything for me. I mean, you're right, there's some really pretty parts in there, and that's cool, but something about it, it's just kind of, okay, it's there. A lot of great playing, so I completely agree with you in that aspect of it. But this, when it made your list, I was like, man, like, I know he loves a dramatic turn of events, but
probably not the one you thought I'd pick off of there. Huh?
Yeah, I really did. I was expecting, two of them, and you picked, one of them was this one. It wasn't the other one I was expecting. So, yeah, just not my cup of tea. I mean, it's a good song, but I think, for something that's, for something like a guitar-driven thing, it just it doesn't stand out to me. Gibson Les Paul agrees with you, so you're up 1-0. So there you go. Rock and Roll Podcast is tuning in. And they're doing it right. Having a beer and ready to hear some Dream Theater talk. Mix in some bourbon there, man.
Hey,
That's
cheers,
always,
guys.
there you go. There you go. All right. So my first one, I'm going to start at the very, 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 very beginning. I've talked about this song before, and I'm just a huge fan of it. I'm going with the guitar solo in A Fortune in Lies. To me, it's just the thing that started it all. It's nothing but shred and guitar tricks. You know, it starts out with tapping, and then it's all like, you know, the sweep arpeggios, and it's, you know, he's just every cool guitar player trick in the book is in that first solo. So right off the rip, you're like, okay, this band has a shred master guitar player. Cool. So where do you stand on that one?
The solo sounds exactly like what you would think is going to be in that song. You know, we've gone over the first album to death probably here talking about it. You know, in terms of how much you like it and how much I'm kind of like, eh. I think it's, you know, it sounds fine for what it is. I definitely wouldn't put, probably, if I was going to pick something off of there, it probably would be Eat See Jam, you know, from the first album. But
Okay.
but yeah, you know, I think the solo fits the song fine. The song is fine for what it is. But yeah, it wouldn't make my 10.
Okay. Yeah, I just love how you know, like I said, the first time I heard it, I'm like, this is like every cool guitar player trick ever. You could tell it's like a young kid, like, all right, time to shred. I'm doing everything. So, this guy, seriously. So we have a comment from me say fu. That name is awesome. Under a Glass Moon solo is the best, man.
That was
I
close to. It was funny. I was flip flopping between that and Metropolis because I figured you'd probably have Metropolis, and I'm like, well, I'll beat something different. But
yeah.
yeah, Under Glass Moon, you can't beat that song. That's for sure.
Yeah. All right. So I have a Fortune in Lies guitar solo. What is your next one?
Well, I keep losing my list here. All right, so we're still on the same album, Breaking All Illusions.
There you
I
go.
mean, I don't know if I just go with the whole song, but I mean, just that opening riff, it's just so relentless and catchy and driving and frenetic, and it's so immediate. I like songs, especially by this band, and as I get older, I like something that immediately just boom grabs me and takes me kind of on a little bit of an emotional, you know, thing. Like it doesn't have to be insanely, you know, super, you know, technical or anything, but something that grabs me right away and just takes off just a tad, you know, just enough variation in it. I just think it's just a great driving riff, and you know, my thoughts on the whole song. It's just amazing.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on the song being amazing. In my notes, I said that there wasn't like one huge thing that stood out. I mean, except for the fact that there's amazing melodies throughout the whole thing. So I would completely agree with you on it being like the whole song because there's so much to digest there. You know, it is one of the longer songs, and I, you know, melodically, it's definitely one of their most perfectly constructed pieces of music. I mean, that you know stood out to me immediately too. When I got to that when I got the Dramatic Turns record, I was like, wow, that is definitely the strongest track. And like you said, it's just the whole thing is great. It's just a master class in melodic hard rock guitar playing. You know, it never gets too metally or anything, and it's just perfectly written, I think. So I thought that was a good call. And again, best song on the record. And we'll get into that one when we do our deep dive into that. But so my next one comes off of The Astonishing, and also should not be a surprise because this is another one that I put into the intro for the audio version of the podcast. I'm going with the entire song Our New World. And I know it was technically one of the singles, so that's kind of cheating a little bit, I suppose. Might be kind of chintzy, but I just think that every single part of this on guitar is like singable. If you listen to the stuff he's playing in the riffs, like if the vocal wasn't there, you'd be humming that part. I mean, the main riff is just awesome. You know, it just has those. I kind of call them like 6-finger chords. They're those really big chords that just sound so lush, and the song is just full of those. It's some of my favorite stuff that he does. You know, the solo sticks in your head really well, and it's like the whole thing to me just sticks in my head, and it has always seemed like, I know there's like a couple songs after it, but it seems like the perfect, like almost ending to this grandiose story, you know, that is The Astonishing. It's always felt like a perfect album ender to me, even though, like I say, I know there's a couple more tracks, but I love it, and it's just so memorable to me in every way.
Yeah, it's an awesome riff, and like I said, I'm a guy that loves guitar riffs. I'd love to see him do a whole album of like just songs that had riffs like that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's just big, and it's like you can melodically, again, you could sing every part of it, and you can't usually say that. You could sing parts of stuff, but again, if you take the vocal out, that whole thing is something you could hear like crowds like chanting or something. It's cool.
Yeah,
You
it
know?
has that King's X feel that we talked about before, but it also, it's kind of where the new solo album is too. It has all of those parts are so super melodic that he plays. Like you said, you can sing along to the parts that are on the guitar. So I'd love to see him do a 10-song album where every song is 4.5 minutes and they all in that vein. It would just be interesting to see if they could do that with vocals, if they would ever even consider such a thing. Probably not, but as a side project with Petrucci doing something like that, I think it would be absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I mean, and he's proven, over time he can definitely write those more concise, direct songs. I mean, you've got something like this, "Paralyzed." You brought up earlier is a perfect example of that. So yeah, I think they could pull it off. I think it would be interesting to hear. All right, so what is your next choice?
I have Root of All Evil.
Okay.
I love that just grinding, heavy, driving riff that starts this song, and especially that it comes in right before the chorus. And when he starts singing the chorus itself with that riff, I just think that's just one of the great riffs that they have. It just like I said, it just drives, and you just like, man, you just want to like run through a wall or something. It's very energetic and awesome riff, and the way it balances with Jordan's keyboards on top. It's just kind of doing those choiry things in the verses and stuff, and man, just a
Yep.
great song.
Yeah. It was funny when this showed up on your list because you've mentioned this song many times, and I was like, man, he really loves the root of all evil. Like that just keeps coming up. Um, not to tease an upcoming show. I think it's what we're gonna do this our next show. But when we do our rankings of album opening songs, we've got 14 to choose from. I'm wondering how high this one's gonna be on your list. So
Yeah, I don't know.
let's.
It's weird. I've started to kind of sort of formulate a small list, and then I'm like, I have no idea. I'm just going to wait.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's going to be a lot harder, I think, than we think it
I,
is.
oh no, I already know it's gonna be hard because on my Star Wars show, we rank the movies, and at first I'm like, okay, ranking it's gonna be real easy, but the problem is like the top is easy, the bottom is easy, and the stuff in the middle, they're so close together that you're like, oh crap, like how do I rank this? Like because they're so close together. So it's very difficult, but yeah, I love this song. Again, going back to This Is the Life, I mean, I like this song much better than This Is the Life, but I think there wasn't one particular thing that stood out to me. Uh, but I do agree that the riff, the main riff is awesome. Like, I mean, that's awesome, and I thought it was a great show opener. I saw it, a couple times on that tour. I saw Score, and when, they after the and then they just come in, it's a cool way to open a show.
Yep.
So yeah, I completely agree with you there. It wouldn't have been on my list, but it is definitely a great riff and definitely one of their best songs, I think. Very concise and everything, All right, so my next one on my list is from Distance Over Time, since we're kind of on that kick. I didn't do this on purpose, but I picked the guitar solo in the beginning of Out of Reach. The first time I heard the record, after I was done listening, that was the thing that stood out in my mind the most. It was just, I'm like, that is perfect.
All right, guys. John has a power outage right now. John froze. So he was talking about Out of Reach. I love Out of Reach for all the singular melodies he's playing there on the electric guitar are totally awesome. It's that very thematic way of playing guitar that we've talked about tons of times on the show. Petrucci goes off into, it's almost a soundtrack way. But those opening solos with the singular melody notes, were just kind of meandering, and it sounds improvised yet structured at the same time. It's a great song. I think that's I'm not surprised at all he picked that, because I know John loves that song. It's a very cool guitar part as well. So my next song, I actually did have, this is going to sound bad, guys, but I actually did have Under a Glass Moon. I forgot it was on my list. I do have the whole song, actually. But specifically on the second verse, there's that very cool, clean guitar part that comes in on the second verse. And I love that part of the song, in addition to the entire song itself. But I think it's also great. That and Metropolis, probably, obviously, two of my favorites, and I got them on the list here for this one. I don't know if John's going to be coming back or not. I've never run a show by myself here. So my next one on the list, because we already did Test That Stumped Them All, I have The Looking Glass. Specifically the main riff from The Looking Glass. It's very Rush, Limelight meets Red Barchetta, extremely moving pictures sounding. And hey, Kale's still here. All right. I love The Looking Glass. Great. The self-titled album has always been a weird album for me, because I go back to it and I really end up enjoying a lot of the songs that are on there. I hate the fact that it's self-titled. That annoys me more than anything. Like, come on, guys, come up with the title. You come up with these great riffs, you come up with these great songs, great lyrics. You have great song titles, so just come up with the title at least. Guys, feel free to jump in if you got any tunes you want to mention. Next on my list, In the Presence of Enemies. I put part one. Now, contrary, Gibson Les Paul, you're right. Enemy Inside riff, crushingly heavy. John did mention earlier that he had that on his list as well as a honorable mention. Did not end up using that one. But Enemy Inside, I was very close between that and The Looking Glass. I just love that opening riff of The Looking Glass, and it has that, like I said, it has that very moving pictures kind of feel. And I don't think there's any band on the planet that's more influenced by, Rush, obviously, than Dream Theater. But back to In the Presence of Enemies, man, what just a monster of a song, And when we did our draft of this, we let Kale, I believe, take parts 1 and part 2 as one song, which I'm totally against. I still think that was cheating and not very cool, but it's all right. I'll allow it. But I do love In the Presence of Enemies. I think it's that intro, the way it starts out, and then the keyboards come in right away. It's just an amazing, amazing song. I don't know that when we go to rank these, it's going to be very difficult to not probably put In the Presence of Enemies number 1. And I don't want to tease that next episode, but when we're ranking the album openers, that might be difficult. All right. Cale McLeish says he chose was The Way That It Used to Be. He loves the closing solo, loves the intro riff, loves the whole clean break. It's an amazing song. I had never actually heard this song before. I'm not quite as much of a fanboy as John is, so I do not have all of these fan releases like they did, like the Metallica one, they did the Iron Maiden one. They've done these where there's demos from every album, but I did go back and listen to it. It very U2-ish. Reminds me of U2. And there's also elements of like the 80s comeback of Yes. And also probably the mid 80s Rush. There's some playing going on there that kind of reminds me of stuff that happens on like Grace Under Pressure and Power Windows as well. But yeah, that's a great choice, Cale. I'm trying to make sure I don't lose power here. I'm hearing lightning and thunder outside my house as well, even though I'm like 100 miles away from where John is. First time running a podcast by myself. So I have, going back to Distance Over Time again, At Wit's End. The main riff, the whole song, but specifically that awesome melodic solo at the very end that's just like Neil Schon on steroids with those singular notes. You're just catapulted into like this completely different listening experience as soon as that part comes in. Absolutely love that part of the song. And we've talked before, John and I, this is the stuff I love most about Petrucci is these super high soaring melodic singular note solos that just, they get, the back of, the hair on the back of your neck starts standing up. And I don't think there's anybody in rock or metal right now that does these any better. They're, like I said, they're kind of very Neil Schon influenced, but if you're gonna play a style, why not, from one of the masters. Storms are everywhere. It's been pouring here, says the Rock and Roll Podcast. All right, I don't know where you are, but this is going to be no surprise to John or to anyone else. My number one pick, drum roll please, The Count of Tuscany. I do not think there in any recorded piece of music there's anything more awesome than that beginning electric solo that Petrucci plays after the little acoustic beginning. I absolutely love that song. All of the parts he plays on that, he revisits the solo at the end. He does a lot of those singular note things again where he'll go an octave higher. There's no parts of the fretboard that are not used. So Count of Tuscany, no one's going to be shocked. That's my number one song. And Gibson Les Paul. Wait, you didn't pick the solo in Another Day. I got a lot of grief for having Another Day on my draft. And Kelly, you can jump in if you want. Well, that link won't work. And I don't know how to send you another one right now. No, Gibson Les Paul, I got a lot of grief for picking Another Day. And I'm going to go on Another Day tangent here. The reason that I picked Another Day is when I first got back into Dream Theater, after kind of dismissing the original first album, after hearing Pull Me Under, I was absolutely blown away. Got the CD, and then the second song, Another Day, comes in, and I'm like, oh my God, this sounds nothing at all like Another Day. Not one ounce of similarity. Didn't sound anything at all like Pull Me Under. And that's what I totally loved about it. I was like, it's super melodic. It had that cool saxophone part. The keyboards were great in it. It was still kind of heavy though. And so I will defend Another Day until the end of time as being like just one of the great second songs on an album because it doesn't sound anything at all like Pull Me Under. And it's just an awesome song. David Ellis. Let's see. Horrible signal. Can't get in. Make sure you click on the comments to bring them up on the screen. I love how I'm getting... All right, let's see if I can click on the comment here. David Ellis. That doesn't work. This is why John runs the show. Anyway, he says, one of my absolute favorites is Lines in the Sand, live from Paris. Although the Bucharest version is awesome because a talk box is always amazing. The phrasing and the bluesy elements shine through, and it's amazing. Yeah, Lines in the Sand, you can never go wrong with that song, whether it's the studio, whether it's any of the various live versions. Awesome, great song. I think, well, John will tell you, I'm surprised he didn't actually pick almost everything off of Falling into Infinity, since that's like his second favorite album, if not his first. Well, I burned through my list here. Now what do I do? So I'm going to talk about something non-Dream Theater related here. The new Judas Priest. Did you guys hear about this? Judas Priest is releasing 42 CD. Oh, okay. Gibson Les Paul. We'll go back to Dream Theater before I go back to Judas Priest. Barstool Warrior, the Bigger Pictures solo. Yeah. The Spirit Carries On. Hollow Years Live. Yeah. Hollow Years. I love the melody in that song. That's probably one of my favorite mellower songs that they have. Dark Eternal Night. I don't know if I should say this. That is on John's list. He did have that one on there. The riff, yeah, it's super chugging, heavy, massive, behemoth of a song, Dark Eternal Night. Those are all great ones. We did, John did mention Barstool Warrior. He was shocked I did not have that on my list. I thought about putting it on there. It did not make it on there. Here's another vote for Hollow Years from David Ellis. He wants the Live from Budokan. Yeah, Hollow Years, just like Lines in the Sand, whatever version you have, studio, live, those are all great ones. I'll go back to talking about, did you guys hear about this? Judas Priest is releasing basically a 50-year box set of 42 CDs. 42 CDs. Basically every single album, and there are multiple live albums and multiple outtakes of multiple songs, hidden tracks, everything in there. So out of curiosity, I clicked on their link to see how much this costs. Now it's 345 British pounds, which actually is 156 kilograms, but it's also 477 US dollars. So Judas Priest has a $480 42 CD box set that I believe is going to be released in October. So start saving up your pennies for that one. Rock and Roll Podcast. What does everyone think of the new Iron Maiden? Now, Adam Rishog, he has a podcast. I believe he did something regarding this. I don't know exactly what it was. I didn't get a chance to listen to it, but I did see the topic was the new Iron Maiden. I actually just listened to it literally a half hour before we started the show. I don't know what to think of it. John and I were talking a little bit. He's never been a huge fan of most of the newer stuff, but I think this is probably one of the better first single releases off of the newer albums that I've heard. It still kind of does that thing that annoys me where it takes almost a minute and a half to get to the lyrics, off of these riffs that, they're not worthy of hearing for a minute and a half straight repeated. It kind of sounded to me like, I don't know, maybe a heavy metal version of The Chain, I guess. That's what the new Iron Maiden sounds like. It was one of those, I wanted to listen to it multiple times. I probably listened to it 6 times in all. I think it's okay. I really wish that they would utilize these 3 guitar players that they have, better than they do in the band. You could have multiple riffs going, you could have multiple melodies, you could have multiple harmonies going, but they choose to kind of play this style where it's sort of plotting. This one's at least a little bit above mid-tempo, and I do like it better than the last couple things I've heard. But I don't know. I feel like they're wasting Bruce's, he's singing probably the best he ever has in his entire life, and the dude's like 72 years old or whatever, and you're really rooting for these guys because you want it to sound good, and you're sitting there and you're playing it over and over, and you're like, man, I really want this to be great, and it never quite gets there. I don't know about the rest of the album. We'll see how that ends up going, but I really wish they could have a rejuvenation the way Judas Priest did, because that Firepower album, I cannot think of an older metal band that had such a giant gap between their classic stuff where you just did not think anything was ever going to come back. And that Firepower album, probably mostly thanks to Andy Sneap, absolutely blew me away. Every song on there had great riffs. Rob sounded awesome. The production was amazing. And there was none of those where you had to wait, 3 minutes for anything cool to kick in. Most of them were pretty immediate, especially when it came to the guitar riffs and the vocals. And I really wish Iron Maiden could give us something that's even 50% as good as Firepower. I would take that at this point. But I just don't know. I don't know if they have it in them. Gibson Les Paul, firepower, great production, no songs. I'll disagree with you there. I'll say at least probably half of it are great songs. I'm not going to say every single one is great, but yeah. David Ellis, it feels like what happened with the Eagles with Long Road Out of Eden, one good song that was kind of the only good one on the album. Hope it doesn't happen with this one. So Cale McLeish, yeah, but they don't need one. All the albums they've released since 2000 is amazing. Now he's talking about Iron Maiden. I know Cale loves all of the new Iron Maiden stuff. He's also like literally a third of my age, I think. So he's going to be drawn to the newer stuff. I just don't know where the riffs are in the newer albums. Like I hear chord progressions that I've heard before from them, but I don't hear these memorable riffs. Where are these memorable harmonies where the two guitars are working together? And it's like the choruses are okay, Gibson Les Paul, Iron Maiden, A Matter of Life and Death is a masterpiece. Well, I wish you could have been a fly on the wall before we started the show today, because John basically just said that was the worst album that they'd ever done. So, but then again, with John, unless it's Van Halen, Sammy Hagar, or Dream Theater, he's probably not going to have a lot of great things to say about any band. So, yeah, I'm kind of in the middle between Gibson Les Paul and John on Iron Maiden on Matter of Life and Death. I will not say that it's a masterpiece. I don't think it's quite as bad as John said it was, but anyway. So Cale McLeish did a 4-day marathon of everything, culminating into Brave New World and the last one, and it was worth it. Well, you know what? Good for you, man. Maiden still puts on a great show, and Bruce still sings amazing. So it's like, I can't rip them for how they are live. And I understand they still want to keep making great music, but I just wish it was great music, as opposed to just making a lot of music and recording stuff. So my last message from John is: a horrible signal, can't get in. Make sure you click on the comments. That's the same one I had. I still can't get the comments to come up. I'm sure once he tells me how easy it was, I'm going to feel dumb. All right, guys, give me some more Dream Theater favorite guitar moments. Just start firing away at me so we can discuss them. Or we can keep talking Iron Maiden and Judas Priest. I don't care. Or if Adam, if you're still on, we can talk about that new Times of Grace that's coming out on Friday. I'm super excited. Can't wait to download it tomorrow. As I Am, solo, yep. Great song. Going to be interesting to see where that where As I Am will rank when we do the album openers. Cale McLeish says Bridges in the Sky, the riff. Yeah, Bridges in the Sky. The entire song, my favorite part of that song is the opening. Just that chant is cool, but then like those just real ethereal, it sounds like an angel choir or something. Just the heavens are like opening up. I don't know what all that is going on, but it's very, very cool with those chants in it. But all of the guitar stuff in Bridges in the Sky is awesome too. Surrounded, the solo for Surrounded. Yep. Surrounded. The biggest shock of this podcast probably to date is that I did not put Surrounded in my draft when we did the draft, because that's probably one of my top 10 songs. I love the kind of the circular way that song builds, and it's a real circular way of the solo for guitar and keyboards as well. Giovanni Palea, hey, he's finally getting to catch the show live. That's awesome, man. Welcome. Very cool. Cale McLeish says one of the few times they've done a, not sure what that word is, toy for opening with something other than the album opener. Oh, tour opening was something other than the album opener. Oh yeah, exactly. Very cool. Yeah, that's a great song to open the concert with for sure. Especially the way, like I said, with those chants and everything. Does Bombay Vindulu count? Great guitar solo. I have no idea what that is. So that may be something on one of the live things that I'm not familiar with. John's a little more in depth on that stuff. All right, here's the question. I know this is about Dream Theater, but how about any of the stuff from Australia? Cog, Carnival, Butterfly Effect, Dead Letter Circus, Toe Hider, Voyager, etc. I will be the first to admit, David Ellis, I know nothing about any of those bands, but I'm more than happy to go check out a couple of them. I don't know about if I can check out all 6. Give me like 2 of those that you think I would love. So I'll tell you right now, probably my favorite bands on any given day are Dream Theater, Killswitch Engage, Alter Bridge, of course, obviously all the classics. So that's kind of where I am. If any of those bands fit in that mold, that would be awesome. Adam points that is from Live at the Marquee. Thank you, Adam. Kale said you named 3 of his favorite bands with Fool, Toe Hider, and Voyager. He also gets to take some credit for a newer project. Yeah, Kale has a new, I don't know if I think you said it's an EP, so I don't know if it's 5 or 6 songs. I do want to have you back on once you get that thing completely recorded. All right, so I got to write these down, David Ellis. Carnival and Toe Hider. I will check out those. I will check out those for sure. Brian, you might really like Gainerius. Oh, sorry, Gallnerius. That sounds like a made-up disease. Lots of guitar and keyboard play. All right, I'm gonna have to. You guys are gonna have to like message me later on these or something, so because I can't write them down right now. Adam says, "Love Killswitch. Do you like Times of Grace, Brian?" Yeah, I just mentioned that earlier. You must have stepped away, Adam. That you and I spoke briefly when you were on the show that the Times of Grace was coming out. The first 2 songs, absolutely amazing. I cannot wait to hear what the rest of this album sounds like, and we're going to find out here in like 4.5 hours or whatever. I'm not sure if it's available for download starting at midnight or exactly when, but yeah, this new Times of Grace has me very, very excited. This has like been a great year for bands I love. Kale once again says, I'm actually working on my solos this weekend. Sunday, the instrumentals are finished. Then it's just vocals. Very cool, Kale. I would like to hear this stuff. Adam, at some point, you need to get me on your podcast so we can talk Killswitch and Times of Grace. Adam does have a great podcast. I can't remember the name of it. It's the Adam and Kyle show, I think is what it's called. Well, right now, John could be under something heavy if his house collapsed or if the roof fell in from rain. We're hoping that did not happen. We hope he's okay. I haven't heard anything for a while now. The last text I got was like 20 minutes ago. So he can't even get on his phone. All right. Yes, Adam's podcast is the Adam and Kyle podcast. Cheers for the shout out. Yeah, man. Cheers to you, bud. And thanks again when Kale came on here. So Kale and David are going to start a band together. He's moving to Perth. But he says Bunbury is a little far from Perth. I know nothing about Australia, like other than watching Australian Outback Truckers, where those guys drive like 6,000 miles through the mud and the rain, and their trucks hit all of these like kangaroos and stuff on the road. It looks like a brutal, tough climate to live in, but I guess that's the Outback. Gibson Les Paul, Brian, you going to see Sabaton open for Priest? I wish I was. I am not. I did not know Priest was touring, and I went ahead and actually bought my tickets to go ahead and see at the same venue the Ace Frehley Alice Cooper show. Only because I figured those two are both getting up there so old that the chances of me probably getting to see either one again after this year are probably just about 0. I did not know Sabaton was coming with Priest. If I had known, I probably would have said, you know what, it would be cool to see Alice Cooper because I've never seen him, but I do not want to miss Sabaton because those bands like that come from overseas, the way that things are with COVID right now and just the world in general, I just don't know how often they're even going to make it over here. Sabaton, one of my favorite, quote unquote, newer metal bands. Everything they do is awesome. Their videos are great. The energy they have live is amazing. And I really wish I was going to see them open for Priest. So Cale has a solo EP he's talking about, but he's also drumming for Goonhound. I love Goonhound. They're one of my favorite types of hounds. No, I know nothing about Goonhound. But hey, Cale, is Goonhound on Spotify? I'd like to check it out if they are. Rock and Roll Podcast. Ace is working on his new album. I hope it smokes. Yeah, you know what? Where do you guys stand on a lot of the Ace Frehley solo stuff? It's weird. I feel like I should probably hate it, but most of the time I end up liking it. The production's always pretty decent. His voice just does enough of what Ace does to where you're like, that's Ace. I actually have really enjoyed the covers albums he's done. I think he sounds good doing the stuff that he grew up and influenced him. And I don't think they're not like masterpiece albums or anything. But Gibson Les Paul, if Ace is singing, I'll pass. Terrible voice. Yeah, there's no way I'm going to sit here and say Ace Frehley has a great voice. But for what he does and the songs that he did, especially on the early Kiss stuff, it was fine. And the stuff that he does, right now is fine too on the solos. I mean, that's Ace's voice. I don't let that get in the way of who he is and what he does. I think it's just all part of his personality. But to me, it's more about, the simple bluesy rock riffs he cranks out. And I love his solos, and he always has a great guitar sound. And he puts that band behind him that tours with him. I think it's with him. Those guys that are from Nashville that are like the house band, and the name escapes me if somebody can think of it. But they're those younger cats that could basically play any song ever written. They're all great cover guys. Gibson Les Paul, he also sounds like he's wearing mittens when he plays live. The songs are so slow, sounds like the batteries are dying in a Walkman. Yeah, he's not going to win any speed guitar contests. But I guess with Ace, what you're getting. There's never going to be any pretense of what he's going to look like, what he's going to sound like, what he's going to play when he gets up there. That's just what it's going to be. Rock and Roll Podcast, Space Invaders, awesome. Yeah, I agree. I thought that was a very cool solo album. Trouble Walking's great. Origins Volume 2, yeah, that was one of the covers ones. Very awesome. I like that as well. Gibson Les Paul, we were talking Alice Cooper. Alice Cooper's band is ridiculous, though. Talk about a band of ringers. Yeah, I have never got to see Alice Cooper, and that's why I want to see this, because I know, let's just be honest. If there was no Alice Cooper, there probably would be no Kiss. There'd be no Marilyn Manson. There definitely would be no Rob Zombie. There probably would be no maybe even Trent Reznor, or some of the stuff that he's done, just in terms of putting on those incredible, spectacular live shows. Alice Cooper, he sort of started all that. And I don't think he necessarily gets the credit because, as a singer, we just ripped, we were talking about Ace Frehley's voice, Alice Cooper's voice. That's, what you're getting with that. It's not a great voice either, but man, the song catalog, he's just going to crank out, hit after hit after hit. The guy's got 8 million albums. So you're probably not going to get too many deep cuts, which is good, but he's got so many awesome hits. And I've always wanted to be able to see this show actually live in person. And I got some pretty decent seats. I think I'm 10 rows back roughly at the Youngstown Amphitheater. And that's where I'm going to be seeing the show. So I'm really looking forward to it. Again, the guy's 70 years old. Ace Frehley's 75 or whatever, 72. So I'm just looking at COVID's over. Hopefully none of this COVID crap will come back when the fall starts. But I want to get out and see as many of these older guys shows as I can, because this is not going to be happening that much longer. I can't think in 5 years from now that Alice Cooper is going to be touring, or Ace Frehley. And I know John just dropped a whole boatload of money on Sammy Hagar tickets, and he wants to go see him because Sammy's in top form, and I think he's kind of the same mindset I am. Who knows how much longer these guys are going to be around. Kale McLeish, Alice Cooper was one of my final concerts before COVID. That's very awesome, man. Gibson Les Paul, check out the documentary called Hired Gun. You'll love it. I actually watched it. It was very cool. The coolest thing about that was that the guy from Five Finger Death Punch was in Mandy Moore's band. There's very interesting stuff in there. That was cool. I love music documentaries. You don't even necessarily have to be a fan of the band, but like the ZZ Top one on Netflix, oh my God, that's very well done. Like, I had no idea ZZ Top had been around that long. Like, they've been around like almost, bordering 50 plus years now. And what, just like a cool vibe, the same three guys, and never let, any of the fame and stuff from the 80s, and all the money and whatever, and all the chicks, they just never let any of that get to them, and they stayed true to who they are. Gibson Les Paul says, Testament show finally got rebooked for October. Yep, I saw that. Testament is coming to the Agora. What is it? Testament, Death Angel, and it's not Anthrax, is it? I know Exodus. It's Exodus, Death Angel, and Testament. That would be a very, very cool show to see. Exodus is one of those bands I was lucky enough to see Exodus on the Pleasures of the Flesh tour in a tiny, tiny club in Illinois. I think I paid like $7 or something, I believe it, and I can't remember who else. I want to say they might have been with Armored Saint, but Exodus, man, they just blew me away. They were great. Rock and Roll Podcast. Yes, thanks for clearing that up. Ace's band is the Rock and Roll Residency. That's what they're called. Yeah, Matt Starr is on drums. I couldn't think of the name of it. Me see FU, Iron Maiden just put out some new stuff too. Yeah, we already talked about that. Me say FU. Hey, me say FU, where do you actually reside? Kale, yeah, we did just discuss it. I think that maybe they're doing that because they know we just discussed it. I don't know how long I should keep this show going. This show is supposed to be aired on the Hard Rock on the Heavy Metal TV, Heavy Metal Network, and I don't know if it's going to be on there because right now John might not be alive, or if he is alive, he's very, very drenched. Gibson Les Paul, still waiting for my Ule Roth show to get rebooked. One of my all-time favorite guitarists. Yeah, Ule Roth, man, that's one of those guys that I just cannot get into. I love the stuff he did on the Scorpions, but I hear like his solo stuff, and I just don't know. I don't know. It's a little too hippie-ish for me. Gibson Les Paul, has he done anything that's a little more metalish lately? Because the stuff that I heard before was just a little too ethereal, hippie. I don't know, Jefferson Airplane like or something that so if there's some newer Ule Roth you can turn me on to, let me know. Hit me up on our messages on our Facebook Messenger, guys. Hit me up with these bands that you want me to check out, and albums or whatever that we've discussed, because again, it's hard kind of writing the stuff down and keeping track of it. Gibson Les Paul says, no, not really. Okay. Well, then forget what I said about Ule Roth. Don't even worry about it. Kale McLeish, I'm enjoying the general chat, actually. It shows great resilience. Yeah, it shows something. I don't know what. I'm hanging in here the best I can. Gibson Les Paul, check out Metamorphosis. It's his version of Vivaldi's Four Seasons. Okay, that I'm down with. So if anybody knows, probably doesn't know, or probably doesn't care, but I actually was originally a classically trained piano musician. I started taking piano lessons at a very young age, around eight. Well, not as young as some people, but 7 or 8. Basically, we had a lady that came to our school. I took piano lesson before school started, and she was also a teacher at a local conservatory in St. Louis. So I took there for roughly 9 years in a very structured classical setting. And so anything that has a classical tinge to it, especially Baroque stuff. I love Bach, but you know, I love Beethoven. I love Bartok. You know, obviously, huge fan of Mozart, Chopin, Vivaldi. You know, any of those composers, you know, from 16th, 17th, 18th century. I love that kind of stuff, and that's why I love Dream Theater so much. A lot of their stuff is very Baroque influenced. Huge Yngwie fan, huge fan. The early, let's say the early Yngwie stuff. Probably my biggest disappointment in all of rock and metal that there is to this date is the fact that Yngwie just cannot and will not get it together. He won't get a producer. He won't get a singer. And he should be every bit as big as some of these other bands are from the 80s right now. He should be as big. He should be making music that sounds like what Symphony X does. That's what Yngwie should be doing. But he's just too stubborn of an ego, and I don't know if he's still an alcoholic. He was at one point. And again, we're going off on tangents here. But yeah, one of my biggest disappointments in all of music and rock and metal is the fact that you know, Yngwie just can't get it. All right, we have private chat. Bring the damn comments up on the screen. I have just enough signal to watch. I don't know how to get the comments to come up. Why don't you tell me how to do that? I have just enough signal to watch the show on YouTube, but it sounds shitty when I am here backstage. I don't know if it means it sounds shitty, but all right. John says in whenever I'm ready. The transformer near him blew. Signal strength won't even let him comment. Okay. All right, guys. Well, we may have to like completely redo this entire episode. I greatly appreciate all you guys for hanging in there and giving me some stuff to talk about because it was a little funky there. But we may have to completely redo this episode. If so, that's okay. If not, make sure you check us out. We are on Facebook, YouTube. We're part of the CMS network, heavymetaltv.com. And we're going to see you guys again in 2 weeks. This is Brian signing off for John Drake from Talking Into Infinity. You guys have a great one.